Some good news. Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth, now owns the land her family's home set on 80 years ago before a racist mob damaged the property. According to local affiliate WFAA, Habitat for Humanity is gifting the 97-year-old back the land that her family previously owned in Fort Worth, Texas. Lee, a civil rights activist who led efforts to make Juneteenth a national holiday, initially contacted Gage Yager, the CEO of Trinity Habitat for Humanity, when she noticed the organization owned the lot. That she offered to buy the land at first, but then Yager said he would instead gift it to her. The organization is also building a home for her on the land. Well, this is some good news. Listen, it's not always that we have good news, right? But this is really something, and I'm just wondering, Torin, what are your thoughts about this? This is something good to write about, right?
Definitely, and I'm glad that that elder is still here to be gifted this land while she's still here to enjoy it on this plane. Unfortunately, these stories are all over the country. You hear these stories about people who've had their land taken. You heard about wealth removal. You heard about people who've created inventions who are Black, who've had those inventions stolen from them. And land theft is something that we don't talk about enough as a community, but this is something that I think most of our grandparents and some of our great-grandparents have stories about land that was gifted to them or land that was deeded to them in the 1920s and 1930s, and sometimes after the Civil War that was outright stolen from them.
That's right.
Either by violence or by legal machinations and everything. So I'm just glad this happened. What I would like to see is more stories like this coming forward, because I guarantee you there's stories like this all over the country of elders who have these stories. And I think we need to start talking to our elders who have experienced this so we can do our own research and maybe partner with people who are focused on giving our people our land back.
Joe, I've been reading about a lot of these deed thefts that have been going on, especially in Brooklyn or communities that are historically Black. And then you have older people that are there. They don't understand what is happening when they're signing a piece of paperwork, what's in this small print. This certainly worked out well for Opal Lee in terms of getting this back. But there's certainly a lot that people should keep in mind when it comes to, I have a property and how should I properly manage it and make sure that the people who are out there, those phone calls too. I don't know if you've gotten a phone call asking about a property, and if you want cash, we can give you cash for it. But there's certain things that people should keep in mind when they have a property, especially if it has history attached to it. Is there not, Joe?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it really comes down to most people have generational wealth do because of the homes and because of the homes that they own. And it is very, very easy to sign your property away without knowing. And it's also very, very easy to not see the big picture once Big Mama dies and Pookie and Ray Ray are fighting over property, and they decide because they live close to SoFi in Inglewood, and they can sell their 1,200 square foot bungalow for $1 million, it seems like the thing to do. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, what you've done is you've given away, basically, you've gotten a value for it, but a generational wealth and a placement in a community. And so one of the things that has happened, I think, is that we have to have larger lessons about the larger issues related to this, how hard it was to get property. Read the book Color of Law and the things that happened, how the interstates split up neighborhoods that were racially mixed and took properties away from us. Teach history on how it was so difficult to get property. And now you can be strategic about keeping property in a family, about doing rentals, whether you help somebody that's in the family get on their feet, or whether you rent at market value, you have it in trust, and you do things that help to preserve it, and you have plans in place so someone doesn't have to die and then things go into probate, which often is what sucks a lot of the value away from the property and a lot of the wealth, because there is a fight where the lawyers have to get paid per court order. Yes. But there might not be the ownership afterward that it would be, and there certainly wouldn't be as much. So we have to look around the corner and not just to it, and hopefully plan for those things so that these things are in place when someone passes, so there's frankly less to fight about.
Absolutely. Currency here is the information here, right, Scott? And not everybody can be an Opal Lee. And not only did she get the land back, but she's getting the house built for her. And we know that is because of her status, but not everybody is like that. So what Joe is saying is very on point. I wanted you to just add to the conversation when we talk about legacy and land and making sure that we get what is ours. I think that there's a lot to be learned from Opal. and a lot to be learned from so many of these stories that we are hearing about across the country. That was for you, Scott. Oh, Scott, your mic is off.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah, you still have people out here. They may not be a racial mob, but you still have those out here who would take our property and want to pay very little for it. It's called redlining. It's called not giving you a mortgage. It's called bankruptcy discrimination. That's a whole nother debate. But that's a good thing. I mean, listen, real estate property is always a value. I'll say that again to your listening audience. It's always a value. It may fluctuate, but you'll always be rich and wealthy if you own property in this country, and it goes up in value. Now, you sell when you want to sell, but at the same time, it's valuable. It is the greatest source of wealth creation for all Americans, including Black people, and certainly folks that don't look like us. So that's the important thing. The other thing, though, is protecting the property, right? If you don't have your property and you don't have your valuables in trust for when you die, or you don't have a will, like most of us don't have a will, at least if you believe statistics, right? You need to get a will for wealth creation, protecting your property for those who are younger than you and coming after you, and pass it along from generation to generation. You got to have something to pass along to, because if you get rid of it while you're alive, I know you can't take it with you, but you got to care about those coming after you, like your children and grandchildren and stuff. And so wealth creation, wealth building, and estate planning. I don't care whether you make $20,000 a year or $20 million a year, you ought to have an estate plan. It doesn't cost that much, a will, or put all your valuable stuff and real estate in trust so that you don't have Ray and Pookie arguing about it afterwards. It's laid out for you when you pass away.
That's
just
right.
Important points for all of us to remember.
That's right. And on top of that, you're not going to pay extra taxes. A lot of monies that are attached, right?
Exactly.
You're passing on that piece of property.
Right.
As I said, information is the best. All right.